You're 23 years old. You just graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering, $40,000 in student debt, and a job offer from a company you'd never heard of 6 months ago. The pay is good. The benefits are excellent. The work, they tell you, is important. You'll be helping to keep people safe. What they don't tell you is that you just stepped onto a conveyor belt, one that moves slowly, rewards patience, and by the time you realize where it's taking you, you've already traveled too far to comfortably get off. This is what it actually looks like to build a career inside the defense industry. Not the version in the recruiting brochure, the real version. Level by level, from entry-level technician to the people who shape foreign policy without ever holding elected office.
Your badge gets you through one door. Just one. The rest of the building is a maze of keycard readers you don't have clearance for yet. You work in a production facility outside of Huntsville or Fort Worth or San Diego. You're assembling components, guidance systems, propulsion hardware, electronics packages. The work is precise, documented, and completely disconnected from any sense of what you're actually building. Nobody on your floor talks about the end use. That's not unusual. That's the design. Each team knows its piece. Nobody needs to see the whole picture to do the job. You get paid well, your health insurance is fantastic, and on Fridays, the company buys lunch. Life is good. What changes you at this stage isn't a moral crisis, it's curiosity. You start looking up the contract numbers on public procurement databases. You start reading about where the systems you build end up, and slowly a picture forms. But you don't say anything. Because the work is interesting, the colleagues are smart, and you just got approved for a secret clearance. That means more access, more money, and the possibility of something bigger.
2 years in, you move off the floor and into a cubicle. You're now a program analyst, which means you spend your days in spreadsheets, tracking deliverables, costs, and schedule milestones for contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Here's where something starts to shift. You see the contracts up close now, not just the work orders, but the full scope. A single program, one weapons system, one vehicle, one communications platform can run for 20 years. The original contract gets amended, extended, recompeted, and reawarded so many times that the actual cost bears almost no resemblance to the original bid. You learn the phrase, cost plus contract. This is where the government agrees to pay whatever the contractor spends plus a fixed profit margin. The incentive structure, if you think about it for more than 30 seconds, is completely backwards. Efficiency reduces profit. Delay doesn't necessarily hurt you. Complexity is rewarded. You don't complain about this. You write it in a report. The report goes up the chain. Your manager nods, makes a note, and nothing changes. Nothing was ever going to change. The contract continues. This is the jump that changes everything. You move out of program management and into business development. Your job, simply put, is to find new contracts before they're publicly announced and position your company to win them. You start attending industry conferences, not to learn, to be seen. You shake hands with program officers from the Pentagon, procurement officials from allied governments, and retired generals who now consult for your competitors. You quickly figure out that this world runs on relationships, not proposals. The proposal is just paperwork. The relationship is the real bid. You also start to understand the revolving door. The retired colonel who now works 3 cubicles down from you spent 30 years inside the Army evaluating contractor performance. He knows exactly which program offices are about to release new solicitations. He knows the people writing the requirements. In some cases, he helped write them before he retired. This isn't a secret. Everyone knows. It's just how the ecosystem functions. Your company starts winning contracts it probably shouldn't have won. You don't ask too many questions about why. Your bonus is tied to contract wins. You have a mortgage. You have a family. You file it away. At this level, you don't chase contracts. You help create the conditions for contracts to exist. A capture manager's job is to identify an opportunity years before it's ever put out to bid, then quietly shape the requirements around your company's capabilities. You brief congressional staffers, you publish white papers through friendly think tanks, you fund research at universities that conveniently concludes your approach to a particular problem is the most effective one. Nobody calls this what it is. It's called market shaping. It's called thought leadership. It's called being a trusted partner to the government customer. What it actually is writing the test and then taking it. You define what the military needs, and then you sell them what you've already built. The generals who approve the requirements often don't know they're reading a document that was quietly influenced by the company that will win the bid. The congressional members who fund the program are getting campaign contributions from your company's PAC. The system is not corrupt in the way corruption usually looks. It's structural. It's legal. It's been operating this way for decades. And you are now one of the people operating it. Your business card now says Vice President. You have a corner office, a travel budget that would make a small country uncomfortable, and a calendar full of private dinners with people whose names you'd recognize from the news. At this level, your job is not to win individual contracts. Your job is to win decades. You're thinking about where global security threats are going, where defense budgets will grow, which regions are destabilizing, which technologies will define the next generation of warfare. And here's the uncomfortable truth about this level. Instability is good for business. Not civil war, not civilian casualties, but geopolitical tension, regional disputes, the persistent sense that a conflict could emerge. That's the environment that keeps defense budgets elevated. That's the environment that keeps your stockholders happy. You don't create instability. You don't need to, but you do invest significant resources in making sure the people who control budgets understand the threats. You fund analysts, you sponsor reports, you make sure the narrative of a dangerous world is well funded and well distributed. When a region starts showing signs of tension, your company is already positioned. You've already had conversations with allied governments about their needs. Your lobbyists are already on the Hill making sure the supplemental appropriations bill includes funding for exactly the systems your company produces. Somewhere around this level, the line between government and contractor becomes genuinely blurry. You've been cleared at the highest levels for years. You attend classified briefings that most members of Congress don't have access to. You sit on advisory boards for the Secretary of Defense. You are, in a very real sense, part of the national security apparatus, just not on the government payroll. You know things, not because anyone is telling you secrets over dinner, but because you've been inside this world long enough that you understand the patterns. You know which programs are going to be funded before the budget is released. You know which countries are about to request foreign military sales before the request is formally submitted. You know which conflict is about to escalate before the press starts covering it. Your job is to make sure your company is positioned for all of it. You're not breaking laws. Everything you do has been blessed by lawyers. Everything you know came from appropriate channels. But the accumulation of access, relationships, and information creates a kind of foresight that is functionally indistinguishable from the inside information that would land someone in finance in a federal prison. The difference is that in this industry, it's just called experience. There are very few people at this level. You might not recognize their names. That's intentional. These are the people who help shape the foreign policy environment that defense budgets respond to. They sit on the boards of think tanks whose reports get cited in congressional testimony. They advise presidential campaigns, and when the candidate wins, they place former colleagues into key national security positions. They don't need to lobby for specific contracts anymore. They influence the strategic framework that makes entire categories of spending feel not just necessary, but inevitable. Taiwan, the South China Sea, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, Each of these regions represents not just a geopolitical situation, but a revenue environment. The escalation or de-escalation of those situations has direct, measurable consequences for the stock prices of the companies these people have spent their careers building. That doesn't mean they're engineering conflicts. Most of them genuinely believe in what they're doing. Most of them started at level 1, believed in the mission, and built their careers in good faith. But by the time you reach this level, your interests and the interests of continued global insecurity have converged in ways that are very difficult to separate. The decisions being made aren't just about which weapons to sell, they're about which alliances to strengthen, which governments to arm, which conflicts to characterize as existential threats requiring immediate investment. And the people making those calls are the same people who profit when the answer is always, "We need more." Here's what the defense industry produces that doesn't show up in any annual report. A 23-year-old technician in Huntsville assembling components has no idea they're touching a guidance system that will be used 5 years from now in a strike that kills civilians in a country they've never visited. The analyst tracking program milestones doesn't think about where the missiles go. The VP of strategy thinks in budget cycles, not body counts. This is not unique to defense. It's how large systems work. The distance between action and consequence grows as you move up the hierarchy until the consequences become statistics, and the statistics become inputs to future proposals. The industry employs hundreds of thousands of people. It produces technology that has genuine defensive applications. It funds research that generates civilian innovations. None of that is fiction. But it also means that some of the most important decisions about when and where America projects military force are being shaped by people with a financial interest in projecting it. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's written into the structure of how the system works and has been since Dwight Eisenhower stood up in 1961 and warned the country about exactly this. He called it the military-industrial complex. He was the supreme commander of Allied forces in World War II. He knew what he was looking at. The conveyor belt keeps moving, new graduates keep stepping onto it, and the cycle continues. One contract, one upgrade cycle, one regional crisis at a time.